Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Dirt and the Divine. This is the podcast where we say what needs to be said. And today, I'm so excited already. Like we've already started. This is Robin Young. She is a new friend and fellow goddess, and all around amazing human being. And I am incredibly grateful to know you. And I'm so excited for this conversation, you guys. Okay. So, hi, Robin.
Hello.
How
Hello,
are you?
everyone. I'm so happy you're here with us today.
Totally. Um, oh, so we hopped on the Zoom right away and we started talking about, how your holidays were, because it's now, I guess, January 15th. And we were like, what? New Year's? What? And you started to say how you had really enjoyed slowing down and taking care of yourself over the holidays. And it helped you to see like or further embody the importance of that, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so continue, tell us again what you were saying, and then we'll just go from
Yeah.
there.
So over the course of the last 5 years or so, I have been starting to put myself, I don't want to say first because that's not quite true, but at least I'm not always last. And it culminated into this last holiday, and I took off 2 weeks. And my soul is just happy right now. I mean, it is literally, it's like, why haven't you been doing this before? You need this. You need this for the work you're doing in the world. And
Yeah.
so it was just funny. It's January 15th, and I'm still saying Happy New Year because it just feels like a happy New Year.
Yeah, yeah, it does. And what you're speaking to right now is the sheer sensation of self-care and self-love.
It is. It is. And you know that my goal is to help people increase their worth so they increase their wealth, so they can increase their freedom.
Right.
And what I know to be true is that it's a continual process. So wherever you are today, you just want to do a little bit more tomorrow. And so that's really what my 2 weeks away was about, that I started building my worth years ago, but it's like an onion. I'm still like taking off layers and layers. And it's like a little bit more work. Like I'm worth it. Like I'm worth 2 weeks off.
Yeah.
Like the world won't end if I take time to just take care of my soul, just
As much as
not
our egos
think
hate
and rest. Yes. And so it's a case of just continually peeling back the onion so that my worthiness can shine even more, which means that my wealth can shine, my freedom can shine. And the more I have, the more I have to give. So it's like this wonderful cycle that I'm still engaged in at every level all the time.
Yeah, yeah. And what I find happens is in this vibration as well. The important thing to note here is that there's no bypassing going on here. We're not pretending all is okay. We're not faking. We're not sitting here
No.
like saying, ignore all of your problems or anything like that. But what happens is that when you get to this level of understanding that taking care of yourself and taking that time for yourself equals happiness and that feeling of connectivity and that feeling of joy, then when the trials come in and tribulations and whatever the uncertainties and the movements, um, your approach to that situation is really different than what it would have been if you were all like overwhelmed and feeling super drained and all of that, right? Like you have no patience to be in.
100%. I'm so happy you're talking about bypassing, because that is probably my biggest spiritual pet peeve.
Yeah.
Idea of always,
Love and light.
if you're spiritual, you should always be okay
Yeah.
and you should always be happy. And that is just not true, because that's not whole.
Yeah.
A whole person has up days and down days. A
Yep.
whole person has growth days and harvest days. A
Yes.
whole person, and I think you use, what is it, dirt and divine.
Yeah.
So it's like a whole person has both. And it's so
Yep.
interesting you say that, because that's exactly what happened. So I took off 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And I was so heavy towards the end of the year because I worked a lot last year. And last year was just an exhausting year for globally, for just the citizens of the world. And I needed that time. And it was interesting. This is my first week back. And I had a big aha in my business about the direction I want to go in because I had that space.
Yeah.
And so it will allow me to just further do the work that I really want to do the way that I want to do it. So it's not just taking the time, it's actually part of the journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And what you're talking about is like opening up that portal of conversation within
Yes.
yourself.
Where you're just like, give it to me.
Yeah,
I receive.
I
Yes.
receive. Yes.
Yes, 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 yes. And that's what you and that quiet, you need that quiet so that you can hear. I call, I don't know what people call, I call my creator. So it can be source or God, whatever you
Sure, sure,
use,
sure.
Allah, whatever you use is yours, but I use creator. And my creator created me for a very specific purpose. And it's to help more people increase their worth, increase their wealth, increase their freedom. And so because I was created by my creator, we're co-creating all the time. Well, if I'm burned out and tired, I can't hear my creator.
Yeah,
So when I relax sometime, I have space, I can receive the guidance,
yeah.
and that's where the magic is.
That's where the magic
Because
is. Yeah.
because if I just did everything I was comfortable doing, I'd never be magical,
Mm.
right? Because it would just be like, well, I'm kind of comfortable right here. Let me
Yeah.
just stay here. But the
Yeah.
guidance is where we go bigger, and
Yeah.
we feel our potential, and we move past those things that really scare us. So
Mhm.
absolutely.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love all of this. I've got like full body shivers. I'm like literally vibrating over here. Um, what I'm very present to right now in my own journey at the moment is how much um of a tripwire worry is.
Yes.
It's incredible,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
and we feel, or at least I do, and I know like I've had clients and friends who feel righteous in the
Mhm.
worry. You know,
Yes.
it's like, no, you don't understand. you
Yes.
you just don't understand.
Yes.
It is this bad, or no, this is worse, this is worse
Yes.
than last time, or whatever, right?
Yes.
Like there's
Absolutely.
that, like, no, I want to worry about this, I want to be afraid about this, and I'm realizing, like, holy smokes, like, no thanks.
Mhm.
Because as soon as you go there, you're
Mhm.
done. You've now hooked into whatever patterns and stories you've got, and now you're toast.
That's exactly right. And what's interesting is, so disclaimer alert, this may not be a popular opinion for everyone, but I am going to say it anyway.
Please say what
I
needs to be said.
I actually believe that worry can be the easy way out.
Ooh,
And
yeah.
worthy can be undisciplined, because it really takes
Yep.
discipline
Mm-hmm.
to order your thoughts and to
Yeah.
stay focused on what's working, to stay focused on your purpose, to
Mm-hmm.
stay focused on your big vision. And I believe it's sometimes easier to just lean into, or I should actually say, lean back into, I'm so afraid.
Mm-hmm.
It's normal, it's fine, but our highest self actually is more disciplined when we're like, wait a minute,
Yeah.
who am I? My creator. And I have big work to do. Is this big work to do? Now, why am I not doing this? Okay. Do I need to sit back and grow a little bit? Or do I just need to forge ahead with a little bit of courage?
Right. And take the right action steps that your intuition is telling you to do.
Behaving wealthy. I'm all about behaviors.
Right. Yeah. I love it. Oh my goodness. This is such a juicy topic. And you know what's, well, no, I was just going to say, you know what's crazy? It's not crazy, because this is what happens. Um, just prior to coming on this recording, so today's January 15th, I've been listening to Paul Selig's work, I Am the Word. Are you familiar with Paul Selig at
I'm
all?
not, but share.
Okay. So it's a channeled text, and it was written like in 2009.
Wow.
or maybe 2010. Like, it was written a while ago, but it's pretty much like an instruction manual for everything that's going on around the world right
Kidding.
now for
You're kidding.
people. Yeah. And the chapter that I just listened to and shared with everybody is exactly what we're talking about right now.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
It's the chapter is called Trials, and they're saying like exactly what we're talking about. It's like, um they use examples like being evicted or have like losing your marriage or something like that, right? Like these
Big traumas. These are
big,
traumatic experiences. Yes, we are not saying that people aren't feeling really big
yeah.
situations. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. What we're saying is that what they're saying in this book is that these situations can still be there. You can still have the fear, but the higher self decision in that moment is to lean towards possibility rather than the knee jerk, or what, like that
Undisciplined.
undisciplined, yes, exactly, space where you're like, oh, I'm just scared, and so I'm just gonna, like, be in my usual pattern of I can't have, and why does this always happen to me, or whatever that is. And then the next thing you know, it's like you're repeating that cycle over and over and over again.
Well, 100%. And my story starts, and I was born and raised in St. Louis, Missouri, in the States. And I literally was born into one of the most traumatic situations you've ever experienced. Both of my parents abandoned me, didn't always know when I was going to eat, what I was going to eat. It was just always so traumatic. So I'm not sitting here on somebody's high horse and saying, be disciplined and think higher thoughts. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that I've been there. I've been on the ground. I've been so afraid in the dark by myself. I have questioned my very worthiness to
Yeah.
be in on this earth. And what got me to where I am today is taking baby steps, because that's all I could handle. But I actually had to do it afraid. So if you talk to anyone who knows me, they'll probably see a couple of consistent themes, but the one you'll hear all the time is that I have courage because I do it afraid. I'm always afraid, always,
Yeah,
but I still do it. So
right.
it's not about not being afraid and not acknowledging the afraid. It's the fear. It's saying, you know what? I'm really, really afraid, and I'm going to do it anyway.
Hmm. Yeah, that's so wonderful and so important, because that, I think the narrative in the spiritual world could be like you have to have no fear whatsoever.
Mm-mm.
And it's like, no, that's not even a thing. It's like
I
it's
never say the word fearless ever. You
yeah,
will never hear fearless come out of my mouth. You
right.
will only hear courage, because courage you can control. Fear
Yeah,
is just there,
yeah.
and it will always be there. And if we're honest, it's there for a reason. There's some beauty and certainly purpose in fear, but we need to overcome that fear so we can experience our best experience. And
Mhm.
that's what I'm about. When I first started this wealthy journey, because my worthy journey didn't my journey didn't start with the goal of worthiness.
Mhm.
My journey started with the goal of wealthiness. I
Mhm.
wanted wealth
Yeah,
because I thought that was the answer, that
right.
I thought that the money would make me feel adequate. I thought the money would make me feel enough. I
Yeah.
thought the accolades would make me feel worthy. I thought that's what needed to happen.
Yeah.
But what I experienced, I mean, I was at the top of my game. I was a vice president at, um, the number one retirement financial services company in the States. I managed $1 billion with a B. I had 500 clients who had to have $2 million with me to work with me. I'm talking about, I was at the top. I was chosen as they, the employee that they would highlight on a commercial. So I had these 2-minute commercials on CBS. I mean, I was literally at what one would consider the top, but I was miserable. I was miserable, and I had no freedom. I had no freedom. Did I have financial security? Yes. Did I have accolades coming my way? Yes, but I didn't have that knowing of worth. I didn't have that knowing of freedom. I didn't have that autonomy. I wasn't doing what I was put on this earth to do. And so my wealthy journey turned into my worthy journey.
Mhm. Oh my goodness. This is such a common story too, right? Like of people
Mhm.
who chase like the accolades because that's what we're conditioned to do,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
It's like you're not worthy unless you have like a
Yeah.
kick-ass career and
Well,
degrees coming out, and all of that.
well, I was going to say maybe I can like put on the wealth, the cloak of wealth, and and can distract people from what I'm not.
Right, 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 right. And that's, yes, I love that because that's connecting that, um,
Mhm.
how you grew up, like your story,
Absolutely.
like that it was like, oh, don't look at me, don't see
Yes.
that I have
Yes.
lack
Yes.
on me.
Yes. But now it's like I want you to see the essence of me.
Hmm.
I don't want you to see the wealthy things that you could probably pick out. I want you to see the essence of Robin. I want you to feel warm in my presence. I want you to feel compassion as I help you through your worthiness journey. I want you to feel competence in knowing how to help you the fastest, best way for you. I want you to feel courage as we both try to do things that are harder and harder for us to do and more fearful. That's what I want you to experience. But that was my worthiness journey.
Yeah. So I want to talk with you more about like worthiness and wealth because
Yes.
um when we originally connected, we talked about, how that wasn't a healthy way to earn wealth, and we're not against wealth at all. Like we want wealth
Love it.
ourselves for everybody else, right? And we started talking about like the future of this and the feminine way of earning and sharing and giving and all the rest of it. So I want to defer completely to you. This is your area of expertise. So what do we need to know, Robin?
Yes. So the first thing I want you and you who's listening, what I want you to do, if you can, I want you to write this down. If not, I want you to listen to it again and write it down because this is
Right.
really important. I'm going to break down the three words that are critical in this journey. So there's worth, which is first. There's wealth, which is second. And there's freedom, which is third. The worthiness is really, excuse me, the worthiness is really about getting very clear on the value you offer other people.
Yeah.
You were created, Krisha, to do a very specific work to help evolve our consciousness. That's why you were created. That's it.
Yeah.
So when you own that
Mhm.
and you understand that worth, you're actually giving that value to other people.
Yes.
And when you package it in a way that people can receive it and have transformations in their lives, they feel more worthy, you feel more worthy.
Yeah.
And guess what that leads to? Wealth,
Right.
because income is an exchange of value. So if you have the worth, and the worth is already there, it's about you acknowledging it, and it's about you packaging it so that other people can benefit from it, can really receive the value.
Yeah.
Once that happens, in exchange, they're going to give you income.
Yeah.
And in that income, in that exchange, that's where you put a little bit into retirement, you put a little bit into emergency, you put a little bit into elder care, you put a little bit into fun, you put a little bit into days, you put it in different places.
Right.
But as you do that, you're building wealth. And what wealth does is then pay for your freedom, because the end result is ultimately that you get to do what you want, when you want, with whom you want, whenever you want.
Yeah.
That's freedom. So it starts with, do I understand how I add value?
Mm.
Can I package it? Can I talk about it? Can I sell it? Can I improve it? Meaning, um, can I make it more accessible? Can I give it to as many people as possible? And if you do that,
Yeah.
the income and wealth will come. And then the freedom is just automatic.
Right.
And so the process that I take people through, that's a very simple process, is how do you really add value to people's lives? And there are really only three ways we can do that. We can help them have more love, more time, or more money.
Right.
Every single thing will fall into those buckets,
Yep.
always. Now, what words we say, how we describe it, that's our unique kind of, I call it unique brilliance.
Yeah.
Ultimately, we add value.
Yeah.
People pay us for that because we're really solving a problem for them, right? And we're all built for wholeness. So if there's a problem, there's a solution.
That's
So
right.
if they have the problem, we have the solution.
Yeah.
We just need to match it with that. And then we get to experience our freedom. And that freedom is where we rise in vibration. That freedom is where we really attract people. That freedom is when I can sit back and say to you, I took 2 weeks off and look where I am. And you connect to that because you've already learned that lesson. That's why those two anchor points of worthy and freedom are critical.
Yeah.
It's almost like the wealth is just the tool.
Right.
Don't even worry about that. Put that on like we literally need to put that in like some sort of automation. Don't even worry about it, and
Right.
spend our time on the worthiness.
Yeah.
Spend our time on the freedom.
And the freedom. I love this. It's so beautiful, right? Like it is such a different narrative than oh God. Like as an entrepreneur, like I was a new entrepreneur into this space. I'd never run my own business before.
Yeah.
I knew I had business in me. I had a couple of business degrees, but I was working for other companies,
Sure.
doing stuff and not doing my own thing. And when I entered into this space, I was like, oh, I know nothing about any of this. Like, oh my God. And so I needed to learn how to sell. I needed to learn how to market and like, and in that was like, holy crap, I don't feel like I have value. What is my value? Right. And like going deep and working on that piece really did open up so many channels and so many doors and everything for me along the way. And it did build wealth, and it built a lot of freedom in there. So I agree. And like you said, the two anchor points is that that worthiness factor and the freedom factor. And when I first started all of this, the emphasis was only on the money. Almost. It was like, yes, well, the three of them were there, but the hook was always the money, right? How to earn your first 10K, earn 10K as a coach, blah, 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 turn your this salary into that salary. It was just like money, 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 money was the hook that drew you in. And the worth and the freedom were in that conversation, but not as much as the money.
Yes.
And I often found that I just found it incredibly difficult to anchor into that.
Yeah, well, and part of it, so this is how I take people through that process, because it's really important. Our world is constantly going through what I would consider economic revolutions.
Yeah.
So there was industrial, and then there was manufacturing, then there was technological.
Yeah.
Now we're in the information. So it's like we go through these kind of revolutions.
Mm-hmm.
Well, before, if you were to look at the intangible pieces of those revolution, it was very difficult to have conversations like we didn't have the words in 1900 that we have the words in 2021. Like we just didn't have the expansion, the consciousness. And so what's happened is just focusing on just the money is such an outdated perspective. It's from an old age, if you will.
Yeah.
And so, but to be clear, we have to focus on some of it. And what I mean by that is, so the first step that I take my clients through is we do, I'll tell you in 1 second, but really quickly, we have to assess the money piece, because we have to get the money piece on autopilot, because it's like everybody needs to brush their teeth. We just need to create a system where you just wake up and brush your teeth. You go to, you brush your teeth, you go to sleep. Like there needs to be like just this very consistent way of being with the money piece.
What I'm hearing you say is like discipline.
What'd you say?
Discipline.
It's always discipline.
Yeah.
It's always, because if we can just get it on autopilot,
Yeah.
then we can focus our energies on the worthy and the freedom.
Yeah,
That's
right.
the key.
Yeah.
Because I always tell people, if they do one thing today, automate $25 to an account today. Because guess what we can always do? We can make it 30 tomorrow. We can make it 500 the next day.
Right.
We can make it 1,000 next year. It doesn't matter the amount. It's the habit of doing it.
Right.
But
consciously opening up that account, or consciously funneling money towards that goal, that dream, that vision.
Yes, but the vision is what's most critical, because without the vision, you actually won't find the motivation to do it.
Yes.
You will not long term, because it's just not connected.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I learned, so another part of my money story is that at my last firm before I started Behaving Wealthy, I managed $1 billion. Like I said, all I did all day was put portfolios together. Are you on track? Are you not on track? And my company instituted a new rule saying we had to bring in a certain amount of new assets. My company, when people retired, they would move over to the retail side. So we had to go out, and I started doing seminars, and my current clients were like 65-year-old white men. And I was like, well, what about I go to the 30-year-old version of the 65-year-old that has $2 million?
Right.
So I went to, and at this point I was living in New York City. So I would go to the professional organizations and do these seminars. And these are bright people. I mean, bright people, like the best degrees, the most hungry, high income earners. But what was interesting was that they were not on track for financial freedom. They were on track for spending.
Right.
Spending and earning, but not financial freedom. I was like, what's happening? So I went back to my current clients who were financially independent, and I asked them 3 questions. I said, how did you get wealth? How do you keep it? And tell me something you know for sure. 5 themes emerged. Every single one of them said these 5. And I was like, oh my God. What if my high income earners, who aren't necessarily turning income into wealth, knew these things?
Right.
Being Wealthy was born.
Right.
But what's really interesting is the very first, I call them money habits. So there are 5 money habits. The very first money habit is see it. And what it is really, what's your vision of your life? What is that vision? And it has to be authentically yours. It has to be something that would delight your soul. It has to be yours. And that's where all of this starts.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, the 5th one is earn it. So you have to learn how to understand and package that your worth so that you can then have the vision of your life. So it's just really interesting. So it's just fascinating.
Oh, I love it. This is like, I love this system. This is what we need now. What's 2, 3, and 4?
I know. Okay.
You're like, trade secrets.
Money habit number 1 is see it. Money habit number 2 is know it. So every one of my wealthy clients knew how much when they defined that see it, those goals, how much they cost. My high income earners did not. They had general sense of things, but they didn't know it. And then number 3 is keep it. My wealthy clients, they knew how to keep their income according to their goals. My high income earners, they were in more reactive mode. So I have this bill to pay, I'll pay this. It's just this kind of rat race, quite honestly. And the number 4 is grow it. My my worthy clients always balanced growth and preservation. My high income earners were always either in hoarding cash or all aggressive. They couldn't balance the 2. And then the last one, of course, is earn it.
Right, right. Oh my goodness. Yeah, this feels so beautiful.
Thank you.
It feels really like it does. It feels softer, And I think this is just such a powerful conversation for right now, right?
Mhm,
Because we're
mhm.
sitting on the back of 2020 where a lot of people have lost their jobs, like complete industries gone, and may never come back again. And so, we need, currently we are still in a cash income society. I love the eye roll, like, yeah. So we are right now, we got to pay cash money for our mortgage or our rents or whatever, groceries. That's still the exchange that's out there. And so we still need to earn. And what do you do if your job's gone?
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, I think it's very important to acknowledge that. So I use a system. I don't know if one of the most pivotal books that I've ever read is called PsychoCybernetics
Oh,
by
it's a great book.
Maxwell Maltz.
Yeah.
And that is my foundation of how we achieve our goals. And one of the things I love about the concept of cybernetics, and
Mm.
that's, think about a steerman, or think about a, a, a target missile. And what I love about this concept that Dr. Maltz really popularized like half a century ago
Yeah, it was in the 50s.
was this idea of, if you get really, really clear on what you want, it's like you're dark, you're almost like in a dark room groping for your target
Yeah.
to find it.
Yes.
And I had to shift my perspective. This is why it was so important to me, because before this, I read this book maybe 6 years ago.
Mhm.
Before that, I would fall into victim mode quite a lot. Like,
Yeah.
as soon as something would happen that was off plan, that
Yeah.
didn't feel easy to get back onto plan.
Right.
Sometimes things are off and you can get back on plan. No, this was like, this is off plan.
Yeah.
Woe is Robin, like, oh my God, when
Yeah.
is this ever going to work out for me?
Yeah.
Those thoughts. And what his teachings really helped me understand was that what I'm considering something bad happening is likely a course correction. And if
Yes.
I could start seeing situations
Yeah.
as either course corrections
Yeah.
or on track, because what was really
Right.
powerful in that book is he
Yeah.
talks about how positive, you don't get positive feedback when you're on target. You're
Mm.
just on target.
Right.
But when
Yeah.
you feel a mistake or you're off
Yeah.
target, you feel it,
Mhm.
that's just simply saying you need to course correct.
Yes.
And when I started to kind of submit to that a little bit, relax into that a little
Mhm.
bit,
Mhm.
that's when my power came out, because
Mhm.
that's when I could say, wait a
Yeah.
minute, since this happened to me, this doesn't mean I'm not going to eat, I'm not going to live, I'm never going to get my goals. This simply means I'm off target.
Yeah.
What if I
Yeah.
could, and that's, and every
Tiny little
time
pivot.
I thought I was, exactly, every time I thought I was totally like never going to get my goal, that thing became the best thing that ever happened to me. So
Yeah.
I'm not saying that if you're having a hard time feeding your kids today, that's the best thing that ever happened to you. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is, if right now you feel like life has slapped you and you're on the ground, lay there for a moment and look up or look to the side and say, what could be the lesson I could take from this?
Mhm.
How can I course correct
Mhm.
so I can get closer to my goal?
Mhm.
And I can tell you, if you take that perspective, this could be the leverage you need to go where you really want to go.
Yeah, and I would add to that, other questions and other things to do is just go into your heart,
Absolutely.
right? Like,
Get
what does
quiet.
your heart desire? What does your heart desire, right?
Yes.
Like, because
Yes.
oftentimes when we are in a situation, it's because we are so far away from what our heart desires.
Period.
We're too far gone, and that's why it's so destructive,
Yes.
because it's like, you're so on the wrong path, babe. Get back, get into alignment. What does your heart desire?
And quite honestly, I don't know who popularized this. I think Oprah did some, and you kind of just cultural things kind of come together. But the idea of a whisper,
Mhm.
and then there's a shout, and
Yeah.
then there's this pebble, then there's a rock, and then
And it's
it's
a throat
crisis.
punch.
Yeah, but it's like when it gets to the crisis, you really haven't been listening.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
if we listen, there's this small, it's that
Mhm.
guidance that I was that because when my creator made me and your creator made you, our creators put in us a success instinct.
Yeah.
Because that, why would you ever create something that doesn't work? That doesn't even make sense. Like you would never do that. You would never ever do that.
Right.
And so you have to tap into the success instinct. And
Mhm.
success instinct, when I say that, I mean like more life or whatever you
Yeah.
want. So it's like, in order to tap into that, sometimes you have to get quiet. Sometimes you have to take 2 weeks off. Sometimes you have to take a drive. Sometimes you have to take a walk.
Yeah.
But it's always about reconnecting to the instinct that was given to you at your conception.
Yeah. And I think this kind of this whole entire conversation is just like a figure eight, right? Because again, what you're talking about right now, what we were just talking about is in that chapter of the book that I mentioned earlier, right? So it's like coming full circle here. And what also is coming full circle is the discussion that we started this conversation with, which was the self-care piece, right? And the self-love piece. Like there's a difference between self-care and self-love.
It is.
And you're saying like, in wherever you are on the spectrum, whether things are really not that great or things are okay, but you're feeling that like that dissonance within you,
Yes.
it is, the key is to get quiet in that. The key is to come into yourself. Like that is all we need to do right now, is just constantly come into ourselves. What do we want? What do
Yes.
we need? What
Yes.
is going to like serve us, me, not
Yes.
anybody else?
Yes.
Because then when you do that, then you can serve the people around you. You can't do it without that.
100.
And it gives you that direction.
It does. But you know what? The sad piece is that we've been raised in a society that oftentimes vaults what other people think of us
Yeah.
over what we think of
Yeah.
ourselves. And so we're raised to be people pleasers, certainly women,
Yeah.
raised to get the approval of the people around us
Yeah.
to validate who we are. In fact, what I'm going to offer your audience is just this, I call it the blocks quiz, but I have this concept called society's worthy box, and there are particular traits that are both demographic and psychographic that society has said should be validated. And if you're not those things, the impression that you get all of your life is that if you're not these things, you're not okay.
Right.
And so it's really difficult sometimes to shift from working in what I call society's worthy box into the shift is what I call kind of God's worthy gift, which is God gave each of us a very specific gift, and we have to acknowledge that. But that's a transition and a transformation we have to take, is to let the noise of the world keep. It's almost like if we were going to use a metaphor, we have to shut the door
Right.
to the
Yeah.
noise outside and then stay in our homes for a moment, which is, I think, what 2020 was about, was
Totally.
this idea of let's get clear on your direction. Let's get clear on what you want. Because if it's so natural, because we've been conditioned and socialized to look and say, hey, mom, what do you think? Hey, dad, what do you think?
Right.
Hey, spouse or friend or whatever, what do you
Somebody else
think?
outside of.
Right. And that's how we
Yeah.
get so off course,
Oh,
because they
totally.
don't know the specific
Ugh.
um creation that was put into us. They don't know that. We're here
No.
to bring it forth. Now they can certainly, we can talk things through with them
Yes.
once we have a certain level of confidence,
Yeah.
but we can never forget that our very essence would never be the sameness as someone else.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes, I was led so astray in my life
Absolutely.
because I was constantly looking outside of myself. What do you
Absolutely.
think? What do you think? What should I do? What should I do? Should I do that? Should I
Decade.
constantly? Yeah.
I would say, so I'm 45. I would say I have spent at least 40. So only the last 5 have I truly said,
Been right.
Robin, what do you want?
Yeah.
But my first 40 years
Yeah.
were all about, I mean, that's a lot of days, Krisha. That's a lot of time to say,
I know.
what do you think I should do in my life? I mean, when you think and step back, it's almost absurd because they don't know what's in you.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, they don't. They can't.
they can't. And I'm telling you, I gave my power away
Yes. Yep.
so much.
Yeah.
And that's why I protect it now more and more,
Yes.
because my greatest power is my ability to choose how I'm going to think, discipline, how I'm going to react. I believe have your feelings, but how am I going to react to the feelings, right? We can have or respond, because reactions can
Yeah.
sometimes be
Respond.
almost
Yeah.
just quick, like just
Yeah.
automatic,
Yeah.
whereas a response is like, wait a minute, is this
Yeah.
where I want to
Well,
be?
it's from that observer place, right? And that's where all these self-care practices are so important. Self-love practices are so important, right? Like you're talking about your 2 weeks and all of this kind of stuff, like, because we need to be able to have that discipline to get to the space of being able to have the space so that we can have these messages come in. So we
Absolutely.
know what's next.
Yes. Yeah. So that's my story.
Oh my goodness. I love it. No, this has been so amazing. Like I know that like so many people need to hear this message right now,
Thank you.
and what I love about it also is for anybody who is looking in their soul and wants to like see their worth and their value and have that freedom and tie it to and create wealth in that this is the way to do it.
Mhm.
This is
Absolutely.
the way,
Absolutely. And it
it's
all
like
starts with, for those people who are like, I have to give, it's not about me. It's not about you. The reward you receive, but it's not about you, because my purpose on this earth is to help as many people as possible increase their worth, increase their wealth, and increase their freedom. It's about the impact that I have in those 3 areas with as many people as possible. Now, because I follow my purpose, I get a lot of rewards,
right.
but it's only because I follow my purpose,
Yeah.
because those are the rewards that matter.
Yeah.
Right? Those are the rewards that when you sit back, you're like, yeah,
Yeah.
I feel great about these. Oh, yes, I
Yeah.
want more. More, please.
More. I call that goddess currency.
Yes, that's exactly right. That's
Right.
exactly
And
right.
it's not always just cash. It's all
Oh my,
sorts of things.
no, it actually isn't. One of the biggest shifts that I had around money and society's worthy box was, so I live a very non-traditional life. So before COVID, in fact, I was on a plane headed to Spain for a month, Spain and Portugal. I was going to spend a month in Spain and Portugal. I was on my way to Spain on a flight, layover in Copenhagen, Denmark. And I get off the plane. I'm like, I have a couple of hours here before I go on to Spain. And the airport receptionist was like, are you American? And I was like, yes. He's like, did you hear what your president said? And I was like, what? He said, there's a 30-day ban, European ban. I was like, huh. Well, I said I was going to actually be gone for 30 days. That really won't impact me that much. See, that's how my mind thinks.
Yeah.
And he said, well, no, because we're shutting down. I'm like, what do you mean shutting down? I couldn't even conceive of what
Right.
shut down meant.
Right.
But ultimately, before COVID, I spent a month internationally, and I spent a month domestically or in the States. And my life is a non-traditional life. And so often people were always like, you would just be so great in this traditional role. I was in finance, very traditional. I mean, they're just, just certain situations. But what was really interesting was that when you live in your truth, you actually impact more and more and more people,
Mhm.
even when your life may look differently than theirs.
Mhm.
So it's just really interesting. So
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my goodness. This is like such an amazing, yeah, like my brain is just going and going and going. Like I'm absorbing and hearing every word that you're saying. And um I'm just so happy that this conversation is happening,
thank
because it's such an important one that needs to get out there right now. So I'm really excited that you're here, and I would love to like continue this conversation in another
me too.
episode, right? Because
Absolutely.
yeah, I think that there's so much more that can be said about this very deep and wide topic. I mean, we haven't even really talked about how do you get into your worth, right? Like even that's just one episode alone. And then what is freedom? Like how do you know what it is that you want, right? And what, like, how do you know what is your freedom versus the freedom that got imprinted in you in some way, shape, or form, or whatever? There's so much. And then, like you said, where do you put the money?
Yeah,
Right.
so I'll say this, a good place. I always believe in offering people value for their time. So if you've listened to this conversation, I really greatly appreciate your time. And in exchange for that, I created this, it's a quiz and it's called Worthy Blocks.
Mhm.
What it does is it asks you, do you have these traits, society's worthy box
Yeah.
traits?
Yeah.
And if your score is lower, that means you have fewer validating traits. And if it's higher, you have
More.
a high, right. But there's this correlation between how you score on this quiz and how much money you have. And
Ooh.
part of the reason is because every time we get the consistent message that we're not good enough, we're not validated,
Mhm.
it becomes harder and harder to do the work that we were put here to do, and our worthiness decreases.
Yeah.
And so take this quiz and see where you are. And one of the things you can start today,
Mhm.
take the quiz, you rank the trait that you have the greatest visceral response to.
Ooh.
So,
Okay.
and then you start to transform that trait
Right.
and you turn it from a worthy block
Mhm.
into a worthy gift, because
Yeah.
what the way you transform is you ask yourself whatever this, let me give you an example. So one of the things is color. And this is separate than race, but it's color. So as you know, I'm very, very chocolate, I'm brown.
Yeah.
And so growing up, the message that I got, not just in the Black community, but in the world, was that I wasn't as good as lighter skinned individuals. And so I had this insecurity about my color. And the way that I shifted that worthy block,
Mhm.
well, first of all, understand that your worthy blocks are keeping you from doing your work in the world. They're keeping you from earning more money. They're keeping you from worthiness. They're keeping you from wealth. They're keeping you from freedom.
Yeah.
And it was keeping me from being seen because of my insecurity about my color. And so the process is
Mhm.
that you take a worthy block and you ask yourself, my creator, this was a gift to others in what way? So, an example of how I shifted or transformed this is that because of my brown skin, my smile pops
Right.
greater than people who have lighter skin. And
Right.
guess what is the universal language in the world? Smile.
Smiling.
Yes, I can go
Happiness.
to any
Yeah.
country in the world, not know a lick of
Right.
their language, move about so seamlessly.
Yeah.
Why? Because I have a smile and you can see my smile.
Yeah.
So not only does that benefit others,
Yeah.
again, to others,
Yeah.
because it's inviting. You know, how often do we walk down the street and we're just so focused? But when you see someone who just smiles at you and
Yeah.
doesn't want anything,
Yeah.
just imagine that feeling you get. Well,
Yeah.
I give that to people every
Yeah.
day, all day.
Yeah.
And in exchange for that, my life is a lot easier. I flow through the world in an easier way.
Yeah.
That's an example of how you can transform. But guess what that does? Each time we transform a worthy block, we earn more money because we feel worthier, we can package better, we ask more people to do business with us in exchange of value,
Right.
and then we have more freedom.
Yeah.
So that is how we transform. So that's something that people can do today. Download the quiz, take the
Yeah.
quiz, take one of them and transform one and see
Yeah.
how that will increase your worthiness, your wealth, and your freedom.
Oh my God, I love it. Thank you. That is such an amazing gift as well. So, excuse me, I appreciate that.
And it's worthyblocks.com. Really easy.
Okay, yeah, we'll put
And
it
it's
in the show notes,
perfect.
so to make it easy for people to access that.
Mhm.
And my final question to you is, what message do you have for people, women, whatever, whoever, today, right now? What's to channel through you at this
The
moment?
first thing I want you to know is you're worth it.
Mm.
And it is your big vision of your life. You're worth that.
Mhm.
And the journey of your life is experiencing it.
Right.
And if at all possible, I'm happy to help you with that.
Mhm.
But there's so many other people that can help you as well, but you're worth it. And so
Yeah.
whatever that it is for you, let's make it your mission, your journey to get to it.
Oh my goodness, I love it so much. Thank you. What is the website again for the quiz?
Worthyblocks.com. So
Worthyblocks.
worthyblocks.com.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Robin. Oh my goodness, this has been one of my favorites. Um, Thank you to you, dear listener or watcher, wherever you are on the dirt and the divine. I hope that you have found today's episode as like, I don't know, just like sparkly and amazing. Like I love today's episode. I hope you felt the same. If you have any questions or comments or stories or anything that you want to share with Robin and myself or myself, then don't hesitate to reach out to either one of us. And please make sure that you go and grab that quiz and find out what your, what did you call it again?
It's society's Worthy Box score. So
Worthy box
it
score.
helps you
Yeah.
understand the messaging that you've received throughout your life about your value and being validated and worth. And we have to transform that
Yeah.
into what's truth.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Ooh, I love it. And I love truth. Thank you so much, everybody. I will see you in the next episode. Thank you, Robin.
Mhm.